right, looks like we got a few attendees coming in, so we'll give it a few minutes here for everybody to get in before we get started. Got here. Full of 5. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody for attending today's webinar. So today's webinar will be presented by Anita Dehaan, and she is going to present on the County of Wellington's Household Hazardous Waste Mobile Household Hazardous Waste Depot. And I will turn it over to her to do her presentation. So thank you everyone for attending.
Great. Thank you very much, Ken. And hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining NAMA's webinar today. So my name is Anita Dehaan, and I work for the County of Wellington, located in Ontario, Canada. And I have worked in the waste industry for 12 years, and I have been in my current role for a little less than 8 years. My role is the Transfer Operations Supervisor for the county's Solid Waste Services Division, and I love my job. No 2 days are the same, and I love being involved in this ever-changing industry. So basically, to summarize my role as briefly as possible, my job is to oversee the staff and operations of all 6 of the county's waste facilities. And then included in this is overseeing the operation of our 5 permanent HHW depots, which are located at 5 of the 6 facilities, as well as our mobile depot, which moves on a monthly basis, and it moves to various locations within the county. And this mobile depot program is what I will be speaking to you about today. So it's great to be here with you, and I hope that you all find this webinar to be informative, and hopefully it can also spark some creative thoughts about how to provide safe, convenient, and accessible household hazardous waste drop-off to more and more communities. So we'll start with just a quick overview of the topics that I hope to cover today in our brief time together. I believe there's some time set aside for questions as well, so feel free to jot them down as they come up if you have any, and I'll do my best to answer them. So first, we're going to have go over a brief overview of the reasons that led us to implementing this type of household hazardous waste drop-off program. And then we're going to see the design of the depot itself and how it operates on a daily basis. And then finally, we'll look at some of the advantages as well as the challenges that we found with this type of drop-off program before we wrap things up. So I'll start with why we implemented a mobile HHW depot, beginning with a little bit of background information to provide some context. So the County of Wellington is located in the southern part of the province of Ontario, Canada. It's about, I figured out what it was in miles. So it's about 180 miles northeast of Detroit and about 120 miles northwest of Buffalo. And the little inserted picture on the top right-hand corner of the slide gives a little bit of a better idea of where the county is located in southern Ontario, kind of tucked in between some of the Great Lakes there. So it's made up of 7 member municipalities, and despite its relatively small population base, it has a vibrant and dynamic economy. Agriculture is one of the main key industries, alongside manufacturing and healthcare as well. And then there's also a strong creative economy, with music festivals and museums and arts and things like that. So it's got a lot of variation, a lot of variety. Wellington County has a population of approximately 100,000 residents and about 35,000 homes, and it's spread out over an area of about 1,000 miles squared, approximately. So prior to the mobile HHW depot program, the county hosted 7 household hazardous waste event days per year, 1 in each of the 7 member municipalities located within the county. And here you can see some pictures of 2 of our household hazardous waste event days. They operated much like a drive-through service where customers would load their materials into a vehicle, drive to the event, and then contracted staff would remove and safely store the materials into drums containing the same waste class. So everything was stored safely. At the end of the day, all the drums would be loaded into a large transport truck and taken to processing facilities. And so on the picture here on your slide, you can see just a couple of different setups that we had. You can see the extra skids and the extra drums set aside, as well as the drive-through lanes, and then the transport trucks in the background waiting to be loaded up. So we usually advertise these event days in the local newspaper, online, or through social media. But it was up to the residents to remember this information, which we'll see later on. It could be problematic at times. So this is just a quick example. I apologize for the quality of the picture here, but it's just a quick example of an ad from the 2015 local newspaper indicating the dates and the locations of that year's events, as well as what types of materials could be brought. And oftentimes we would combine our household hazardous waste event days with electronic recycling event days as well, so that residents could attend any one of the 7 event days and they could bring their e-waste and their HHW at the same time. So then on top of these event days, the county also operated 5 select household hazardous waste permanent depots. And this picture is just one of our depots that's located at our Aberfoyle waste facility. So you can see they're all pretty much exactly the same as that. And unlike event days, these depots were open year round, but the catch is that they only accepted a small variety of hazardous materials. So the materials that we accepted year round at these depots were motor oil, oil filters, aerosol cans, antifreeze, propane cylinders, auto batteries, and household batteries. So that was everything that you could take to these permanent depots. Any other household hazardous materials, such as cleaning products, paint, pool chemicals, things like that, that anything else that residents wanted to dispose of had to wait for one of the 7 event days. And while this setup certainly provided residents with options for safe hazardous waste disposal, we continued to hear feedback that residents were not satisfied with only one event day in their municipality each year for all of the other materials. Sure, they could drive to any one of the 7 HHW event days when they were being held, but this could represent up to 2.5-hour round trip, depending on the location of the event with respect to the resident's home. So solid waste services staff and county councilors regularly received requests for additional event days or permanent full service depots, as opposed to the 5 select ones that we currently had. We also heard feedback that residents missed their local event day either because they were away that day or they simply forgot about it, which brings me back to that first slide where we really relied on residents to remember, when that one day was being held in their area. This was compounded by the fact that most of the event days fell during the summer months, which is of course prime vacation time. So many people were just not able to attend their local event day, even if they wanted to, because they were away that week, for example. So the only option we could provide at that time was for them to hold on to their materials until the event day was back in their municipality, which was of course less than ideal. So basically we ran 2 systems, one that provided a year-round drop-off of materials, and the other which provided drop-off for a wide range of materials, but for only 7 days a year. Staff assessed a number of different options to meet residents' requests for more access, alongside our own goals of providing excellent customer service and environmentally responsible operations. And of course, we also wanted to make sure that we were being financially responsible as well. So if we doubled the number of event days, we discussed that as an option. It would still only provide 2 days per year in each municipality. and they were very costly to operate. And as far as our existing permanent depots went, there simply was not enough space at our waste facilities to expand them to accept additional materials. And then not to mention the fact that one of our 6 sites didn't even have an HHW depot to begin with. So as you can see in this slide here, we really didn't have a huge building to operate out of. It was very simple and small. It did the job it needed to do, but there wasn't a whole lot of room to expand operations and accept more materials. So we were able to draw some inspiration from a neighboring municipality who ran a depot that operated out of 2 locations. And basically it spent 6 months per year in each of the locations. And we decided that a program such as this would not only greatly expand the number of locations that could host a drop-off depot, but also significantly increase the number of days that full household hazardous waste drop-off would be available to residents, so that they wouldn't have to wait to go to just one of the 7 annual event days. They could now access HHW drop-off 3 days a week, year-round. So we started taking all the necessary steps to set this idea into action. And in July of 2016, we officially launched our HHW mobile depot program. And in this picture on your slide, these 2 pictures, the one on the left is obviously when it's still being made. It's not quite ready yet. And then on the right, you can see the final product. So we'll go over a little bit of the design. This slide here shows sort of a top view of the design, and then the bottom small picture there just shows the spill containment floor. So essentially, the mobile depot is a fully customized roll-off bin based on a standard 55 cubic yard bin. Its dimensions are 22 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 8 feet 5 inches tall. So plenty of room for standing in and walking around. It features, there's certain features it has. So it has a permanent roof, but it has natural lighting in the roof, which is made out of plexiglass cutouts. There are pull plates at each end of the bin for moving the depot when it gets relocated, so it can hook up to a roll-off truck. There is an explosion-proof design with certain sections that are designed to fail in the case of a sudden release of energy. There are 2 sealed extra large lockable doors. Each door measures 7 feet high by 5 feet wide. There are shuttered vents on both ends of the bin, as well as removable ramps in front of each door, which are made of aluminum. So one person can move them. They're light enough that they can be handled with one person. So we'll move on to some promotion and education. So we had this brand new bright orange bin that was going to move from site to site on a monthly basis. But how would we let people know where it would be? This was a brand new program, and we wanted people to use it and know how to use it and where to look for it. So the schedule for the depot's location each month is made a year in advance. And the depot simply rotates to all 8 of our pre-approved locations. Each municipality hosts it at least once per year, and the rotation continues from one year to the next, moving at a new site every month. The schedule is advertised to residents in the local newspaper, published online and on our website, posted on social media, and placed on our waste app. One of the many things our waste app does is sends out notifications letting residents know where the depot is moving to next and when it is ready to be set up, or when it's ready to receive material once it's set up. We also publish a postcard with all of the locations and months on it for the year and distribute these to customers who visit our waste facilities requesting this information. We also find this is a great tool to have when residents bring household hazardous waste to one of our waste facilities that we can't accept at our select permanent depots, such as paint or cleaning supplies. So rather than simply informing them that we can't take their specific items today, we can immediately provide them with an alternative solution because the mobile depot is always up and running somewhere in the county. We also alternate the schedule between northern and southern sites on a monthly basis so that if a resident lives in the southern part of the county, he or she can be guaranteed that the depot will be more local to them either that month or the following month. And as much as we like to rely on digital P&E where possible, we found that there was still a need for promotion through printed advertisements. Some customers do not have a cell phone or internet access, or simply just were not interested in downloading the Waste app onto their phone, even though it's free and we think it's great. Some people just don't want it, and that's okay. We have to respect that as well. So we publish and disseminate a lot of educational and informational material, as I'm sure most of you who work in the waste industry can relate to. But these postcards have become our most widely distributed information piece. And the mobile depot schedule is one of the most frequently searched topics on our website as well. So it's really great to see the high level of interest and resident engagement with this program. And this slide here just shows our 2023 postcard. Each year we publish a new one in this exact format, and some residents like to keep it in their vehicle or stick it on their fridge with a magnet so that they don't forget. But like I said, we provide many other options for residents to receive this information as well. So during our first year of operation, we also offered a complimentary orange box to every customer who used the mobile depot. We placed a sticker on each box, which indicated what they could bring to the depot, as well as an unacceptable items list and some safety tips as well. So there's a picture here of the sticker that we placed on the side of each orange bin, as well as just an orange bin that we gave out. The purpose of this was to provide residents with a leak-proof bin that they could use to transport materials to the depot so that they would be able to keep their vehicle clean. We also hoped that it would encourage them to use our program as much as possible, and so that materials were not being stockpiled in homes or basements. So the idea was, keeping this orange bin in your garage or wherever you wanted to keep it, and then, filling it as you needed to. And then once it was full, taking it and bringing it to the depot for removal of the materials. And then you could bring an empty bin back to your house. So we were hoping that that would be something that was utilized by residents. And they do. We see them coming in all the time, people coming in with their orange bins full of their household hazardous waste. So we no longer automatically hand these bins out to everyone, but we still do stock them. And we do provide them to anyone who requests one for free. So it's just another piece to help people use the program, as well as just promote it, that it exists and that it's there for them. So inside the bin, there's a few pictures here that show what it looks like. There's a graded spill-proof floor, which is made of galvanized steel, and each metal plank, if you'll allow me to call them planks, are about 10 inches wide, and they're set about 2 inches above the bin floor. The bin itself can hold 18 to 20 45-gallon drums comfortably during the operation of the depot, and at a maximum, it will hold 25 drums single stacked. Any more than that, it just becomes too difficult to work comfortably in. So we try to make sure that we keep our material to less than 25 drums if we can help it. There are shelves along one wall to hold boxes of fluorescent tubes. You'll see that shelving there on the picture on the far left, and other supplies like load bars. And then at one end of the bin, there are 2 lockers installed a few feet off the floor so that there's space to store boxed items. Personal protective equipment, things like that can be stored underneath or in the lockers as well. And then between the lockers are 3 shelves for additional manual supplies, binders, paperwork, what have you. And then there's also a small 18-inch by 18-inch fold-down desk, which can be used for tracking or recording information, or for placing binders on, or, you know, papers that you're using, whatever the case may be, that's available as well. And then we also have a small metal bar to hang our rolls of drum labels from for easy access and to keep them neat and tidy. So on that picture, the third one on the slide, you can see the rolls of labels, drum labels, and then kind of behind you can see that little desk is kind of folded up, that little 18 by 18 metal desk. So that's kind of available there. It can get folded up and clicked in place, or can be brought down if needed. So we also take advantage of the fact that the walls are metal, and we use magnets to post signs, labels, inventory sheets, supply lists. We even have a health and safety policy on a magnet. So it's kind of nice to be able to use the walls as, you know, ways to post material that's frequently used or that has to be posted. So they can easily be changed around if needed, depending on, you know, what materials are in or where we have to put certain items. And then we can easily update the sheets, like cheat sheets, for example, of, you know, quick sorting references, what goes where, those types of sheets. We have those all kind of posted with magnets inside the depot, and they're easily moved around and replaced as needed. So the county employs an HHW technician whose primary job is operating the depot and ensuring that all materials are received and safely stored and packed for shipment. The HHW technician is also responsible for ensuring that all required tracking and paperwork is accurate and complete, as well as overseeing and assisting with all material pickups and bin relocations throughout the year. So there's a lot to the job. Initially, it started as a 3-day-a-week job, just because that was when the depot was operational, was 3 days a week. And we quickly found that there was so many other aspects of the operation that needed to be done, pickups and paperwork and transporting, relocating, setting it up, that it was very easily made into a full-time 5-day-a-week job. So obviously it moves every month, so it moves 12 times a year, and we typically have approximately 4 to 5 pickups a month at the busier sites, and 3 to 4 per month at the slower sites. So on average, about once a week, we're having a pickup at the depot, and that usually keeps us well within our ability to store all the materials that we have. So in this slide, you can see what the depot looks like just set up during a regular operating day. The appropriate placards are in place. There's a receiving area with a table, as well as a spill containment skid, some bins for sorting underneath the table, and a spill containment tarp as well. All customers' materials are placed in the receiving and staging area, and then they're sorted by our HHW technician and placed into the appropriate lab pack drums inside the depot. At the end of every month, all the materials must be picked up by our HHW contractor so that we can relocate the depot to its new pre-scheduled location. So we're not allowed to transport the depot with any materials inside. So it's important to coordinate timely pickups so that we can relocate the depot on schedule. And then we also have to make sure that we remove the placards from the outside of the bin as well, because just as much as we're not allowed to transport it with materials, we're also not allowed to transport it empty, but keep the placards on, because that shows possibly a hazard that doesn't really exist. So we also inform the fire chief of the jurisdiction it will be relocated to in advance of us moving the depot there. So each month I send an email out to that area's fire chief, letting him or her know of the depot's pending arrival. And then I also extend an invitation to them to visit the depot anytime should they wish to do so. Some of them have, some of them haven't, but we just want to make sure that they have the option. This allows them to be aware of any potential hazardous situations that they or their crews may be called to. And thankfully, we've never had an incident with our HHW depots, any of them, which has required us to contact the fire department. But we would still rather them be actively aware of when the depot is in their jurisdiction, if there ever was a need for them to respond to an emergency on site. So once the full drums are removed and all of the ramps, the spill containment skids, empty drums, and other paraphernalia are safely secured inside the depot, usually we do this with bungee cords or load bars, then one of our roll-off drivers will hook up to the bin and drive it to its next stop. And once it is dropped, our HHW technician immediately starts the process of setting up and getting drums labeled and ready to go for operation at the new location. If everything goes to plan, the pickups can usually be finished with paperwork completed, materials secured, and the depot loaded onto the roll-off truck, ready to move within 2 to 3 hours. So it's a pretty slick operation if everything goes, according to plan, which we know in operations it doesn't always, but most times it works really well. So now we've got a few numbers to go over, for those that are interested in this type of thing. So basically, we found the more residents got used to the program, the more popular and well utilized it became, which makes sense. So these numbers show the total customer counts broken down by month from July 2016, when the program launched, to December of 2022. So last year, the most recent full year of data, obviously. So we continued to see an increase in usage year after year until we reached over 6,000 customers a year, which has held steady the last 2 years. So because the schedule is always rotating, there isn't necessarily a strong trend of higher versus lower usage throughout the year, but in general, you can split the year into 2 parts and see that May through November are a little busier than December through April. And this makes sense just based on the fact that during the cold and snowy winter months, people are not cleaning out basements or garages as frequently as they might in the spring or summer. So we definitely do experience months that are far busier than others. So I would draw your attention to June of 2020, where we saw 1,409 customers, compared to February of that same year where we saw 67. So that's
We see, just a second, Anita, we seem to have lost your audio. Does anybody else? Matt, I know you're on the call. Can you hear Anita's audio?
I have not heard it.
Okay, so it did drop off. Okay, Anita, if you can hear us, you may need to call her to come back in.
Yeah,
She dropped off the call completely right now. So if everyone could just hold on for a minute, or we'll give her a chance to rejoin. But you lost her presentation and everything, so. And we'll let you. You need to reshare your screen also, Anita.
all right. Yeah.
Should be back up and running.
Okay. Share. Okay. Are we back?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, you're good to go.
Okay. Awesome. So I think I had just left off talking about customer counts. And
Anita, it did
yep.
switch from slide mode. Now we're seeing the one with your notes.
You are. Okay.
So it did switch. It was good for a second, and then all of a sudden it switched over to the other.
Okay. I'll just try that again then. Actually, I'm gonna. How does that look?
Now we've got just the slide, so.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. So here are the total weights from July of 2016 through to the end of 2022. And note that they are all in kilograms, but there are about 2.5 or 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So you can roughly double the numbers if you wanted to get an approximate weight in pounds, if that helps sort of visualize how it would maybe compare to your program. We find that sometimes the customer counts will be exceptionally high, but each customer might only bring a small assortment of materials. This is often characteristic of the more densely populated urban areas. When the depot is stationed in a more rural setting, the customer count might drop, but we consistently find that each customer tends to bring a larger load of hazardous waste. So this means that you could be far busier serving 5 customers with large amounts of material, obviously like maybe from like a family owned farm or something like that, then you are serving 20 customers who each just brought a small handful of materials from their home. So we found that it was important to consider the customer counts and the weights when trying to analyze the usage and trends and such. But regardless of all of that, the same approximate trend remains, where May through November are normally the busier months of the year, and December through April slow down relative to the other months. And this rings true both in total customers as well as total weight of material collected. And we have a few more numbers to share, which I think these ones are they're pretty telling for how this program has been successful for us. So this chart breaks down the direct comparisons from 2015, when there was no mobile depot service available, through to 2016, when a mobile depot service was available for half of the year, so starting in July, to 2017, when all event days were eliminated and the mobile depot was available year-round. And you can see that the total weight of the material collected increased by 14.7% over that time. The number of customers increased by 21.8%, and the number of operational days increased by 16%, when we factor in the fact that we still did run our permanent depots. But the total cost of the HHW program in the County of Wellington was still reduced overall. So this program really has been a huge success for us, both from a financial standpoint as well as a customer service standpoint, and we're really proud of these types of results. And so who would this work for? Well, the mobile depot system could be replicated by any municipality. It is a low-cost option compared to establishing a permanent household hazardous waste depot, and it represents a cost savings versus our previously utilized service options of holding event days. It has the ability to extend accessibility within the community rather than having a single permanent location where residents may have long drives to access it. And all of these features make it an attractive and viable option for smaller, rural, or more remote locations. However, this program can be adapted to many different community sizes, depending on the number of depots you have, the budget you have, the staff you have in place to help run operations. There's just so many different factors. So, for example, we could theoretically have 2 depots that alternated between the sites, and each depot could remain on site for 2 months rather than 1 month before being relocated. But it all depends on the number of suitable and approved host sites you have available as well. So it is a very adaptable program. Even placing a depot like this on a site without the intention of ever moving it would still provide you with a relatively inexpensive facility to set up and run, compared to larger, more state-of-the-art depots, which are, of course, no doubt beautiful and good, important to have, but they're not always viable or even necessary for all communities. So this type of setup, or one that is similar, such as like a prefab building or something like that, simplifies the operation so that everything you need in terms of regulatory requirements, safety features, and security measures are still in place, but it can be operated for a fraction of the cost. So throughout the course of the webinar, we've focused already on many of the advantages realized with this depot program, the mobile program. And we were obviously able to provide a large increase in accessibility and provided residents with much more opportunity to dispose of their hazardous waste. We saw that there was an increase in the overall usage when compared to the event days. And this didn't mean that suddenly more HHW was in circulation in Wellington County. What it did mean was that we were capturing more of it for processing and safe disposal, or removing more of it from stockpiles in sheds and garages and basements. In the case of one practical benefit of that is in the case of natural disasters such as flooding or tornadoes or whatever other severe weather you could have, the less hazardous material that we have stockpiled in the community, the better. So the more we have sitting in homes, the higher the risk of that hazardous material or chemical being released into the environment and causing harm to humans or animals. So the program is also very versatile and relatively quick to implement and operate once all of the appropriate approvals, logistics, and capital expenditures are in place. And of course, that's not always easy, but regardless of the program, those are necessary. So once those are in place, then the program itself it can get set up pretty quickly. Another advantage is that the program is operated directly by the county and not a third party. So this provides us with more direct control over how we operate, the staff that we employ, the standards that we maintain, the schedule, health and safety procedures, the training that we provide. That's just to name a few things. So the more hands-on or the more you have control over your program, the more you can sort of mold how you would like it to look for your residents and your customers. On top of these benefits, we found significant cost savings compared to our event days. Not only did the cost per kilogram drop, but the overall cost of the household hazardous waste program did too. So we were actually offering a better service and collecting more materials, and the bottom line was still cheaper than when we paid for 7 event days. I remember lowering my budget number just a little bit more, the first couple of years, because I didn't dare lower it too quickly, just in case year 1 or year 2 were not reflective of what the program would actually cost over time. And of course, the cost of the program did rise over time as it was utilized more. So we kind of, in that sense, became a victim of our own success. But yeah, all the other benefits that we reaped from this program far outweigh the cost to operate it. And it's still well within reason, considering the increase in service levels and materials. And I'm just trying to think. I think it was something like in 2016, when we implemented it, we then canceled 2 of the event days, and we still saw an overall savings of about $40,000 that year. So it's not that I'm comparing or providing, a bit of a percentage of the overall budget, but there was a significant amount of money that was saved just even in the first 6 months of operation. So up until now, I've been talking about all the great results we've been able to achieve with this type of program, but that doesn't mean that a mobile depot is without challenges, and we certainly have our fair share of them as well. So I want to spend a little bit of time just going through some of these challenges that we faced and how we've tried to sort of negate them. So the first one that sticks out immediately is just lack of storage space. The program can operate very safely because nothing is decanted or bulked. Everything is received in the container it's brought in, and that container is then placed in a drum with other chemically compatible materials. However, the downside to this is that you can very quickly fill up drums, and then you run out of room because you naturally just have a lot more airspace in the drums. So containers that are half full take up just as much room as full containers do. So this was a definite learning curve for us, and we took a few kicks at the can to learn how often we needed to schedule our pickups. We didn't want to run into a situation where we needed to shut down operations due to lack of space, but we couldn't operate if we didn't have anywhere to put stuff. So we adjusted pickups frequently as we learned more and more about what to expect. And we also included a maximum quantities of may apply notice so that we had the authority to refuse loads that were simply too large to accept all at once. We've seldom actually had to enforce this, but it just gave us the ability to do so if the need arose. We also ran into a challenge when we realized that our beautiful metal ramps were too heavy to be picked up and moved inside the depot for transport. It could be done with 2 people, but we still didn't like the idea of having 2 staff struggle with large awkward metal ramps each month. So we looked into the possibility of attaching the ramps to the depot to simply be able to fold them up rather than have to load them in and out every time. But the tarper arms on our roll-off trucks just weren't wide enough to allow for this extra bulk on the outside of the depot. So we ended up procuring 2 aluminum ramps that are much lighter and easier to maneuver. And although we try to have 2 people on site for each pickup along with the contractor, the ramps are light enough that they can be loaded into the depot by 1 person if needed. So on the slide, you can see a direct comparison of when we first got the depot, the large orange ramps, and then you can see how its current state with the aluminum gray ones. So that was a change that we implemented pretty soon after we got up and running. Another challenge is the strong reliance on external contractors that this program has to ensure that pickups are provided on time. So this is necessary. This reliance is necessary in order to maintain operations and transport the depot to the next location, because we can't transport it if there's still materials inside. So we've experienced contractor truck breakdowns, staffing shortages, both of which have caused them to have to reschedule our pickups last minute. And these unforeseen circumstances can happen in any operation. And in general, our contractors have been great to work with. But when you're relying on a third party, then you are at their mercy. And if they are unable to deliver, then there's not a whole lot more you can do about it than just letting your residents know that the depot is going to be delayed. Staff coverage is also a challenge. As much as it's a benefit to employ your own staff, it's also then your responsibility to ensure that there's adequate backup coverage available. So because we only have 1 mobile depot and 1 HHW technician, we had to prioritize conducting a large amount of cross-training with other operational field staff so that there were a number of people that could step in and operate the depot in a pinch if needed. This is another benefit of having 2 people at each pickup, 2 staff. It just enhances the overall familiarity with the operation so that they feel comfortable stepping in to run things if needed. There's also just the operational challenges that can arrive from how the days on the calendar line up. So if the last day of the month is an operational day at the current site, and the first day of the next month is an operational day at the next site, that doesn't leave very much turnaround time to pack up and transport and set up the depot. And you would think that 1 day late wouldn't be a big deal, but the customers come ready. And on the first day of the month, they are showing up with materials and they want to drop them off, even if we're not yet ready to receive them. So to try and help with this, we began including in all of our promotional and educational materials a request for customers to allow for time at the beginning and end of each month for the depot to be relocated. This doesn't always stop customers from coming on the first of the month, but at least it provides our staff with something to point to when they're explaining why we're not yet able to receive their materials. And it doesn't happen every month, but if the calendar lines up just right, it can be an operational challenge once you get people sort of used to a certain schedule. Another challenge is the weather. What would a Canadian program be without winter challenges? So we operated only event days in non-winter months of the year. But when we started this program, we operated year-round, meaning that the staff were subjected to snow, wind, cold temperatures, ice, you name it. So even something as simple as storing empty drums outside became a challenge when, before using them, they had to be dug out of the snow and the ice and snow had to be chipped off and cleared away. So it just makes operations more difficult. Staff have to be able to walk around without slipping on ice, and they have to be able to escape inclement weather if needed, take shelter, warm up. And it just makes transporting the depot a little more time consuming as well with all of these things to consider. So we make sure that staff are provided with appropriate footwear. Everybody receives a clothing allowance, winter hats and gloves, treads for boots, ice chippers, as well as a shelter just in the form of existing buildings on site so that they can warm up when needed. And finally, a more recent challenge we've run into is funding complications. So Ontario has an EPR program for household hazardous waste. And although it does not fully cover the cost of all materials, it certainly helps offset some of the costs for municipalities who collect it. So we used to receive an hourly funding amount to help cover the cost of the mobile depot program, as well as funding for certain materials. However, in order to qualify for this funding, your program must meet certain standards. And with a new regulatory body put in place by the Government of Ontario, we have recently run into the issue of our program not meeting the accessibility standards required for funding. Although our depot is open year-round for all residents to use when they want, it's not open in every municipality year-round due to its rotating schedule. So because of this perceived inaccessibility, part of our funding is being challenged. And as of yet, we have not been able to come to a resolution with the Resource Recovery and Productivity Authority, which is the governing body in charge. So we have explained our operation and how it works, but because it's quite unique, there are no set policies for how to handle funding for this type of setup. So in no way will it affect our decision to operate. We've seen too many benefits for that to happen, but it's just a bit of a challenge that we've run into because of the uniqueness of the program. So the mobile HHW depot, I'll just talk about a few little success stories, has received various awards. Most recently in September of 2023, we were the recipient of the NAMA Award for Program Innovation, which is proudly displayed in our office. So that was a big honor. And over the years, we've had numerous other municipalities and First Nations communities either visit our mobile depot because of the success story it has been for us, or contact us to see if this program or a version of it would be something that would work for them as well. Apart from the obvious success stories of enhanced service levels and usage that we've seen, there's also been some neat moments. So shortly after we launched, a customer dropped off a can of Loop brand paint for recycling at our depot for the first time. And the reason that this was cool was because the company that we ship all of the paint from our depot to for recycling is also the very same company that runs Loop, which markets recycled paint from the old paint it collects. So we truly got to see that come full circle when we were actually sending recycled paint back to the very same company that first marketed it so that it could become re-recycled paint. We have since received many more cans, but the first one was pretty neat. The slideshow, it shows also a can of Blue Moose paint, which is basically produced by the same company, just sold under a different name. But regardless, it's a fraction of the price of newer designer paint. And it was neat for us to play a direct role in this loop, so to speak, where we saw firsthand, that these programs work. And they really do reduce not only the amount of new product that has to be put on the market, but also preserves resources and protects our environment during the manufacturing process. That's why I think these types of professional development opportunities are great, because we all work in different roles. We have all have our own stories to tell, and there may be parts of this that aren't necessarily relevant to your job, but so often we might still be able to take bits and pieces of what others are doing, even if it's just something non-tangible like a mindset or a frame of thought, and use these pieces in our own operation to help enhance our service levels. So regardless of our role, we are all working towards the same goal ultimately, regardless of whether we're, working in the US or in Canada or anywhere else. It's great to be able to share knowledge and resources. So that brings me to the conclusion. I just have a few words to wrap up. That we're really proud of our mobile depot. We're thrilled with the results that the program has provided. And the residents also love it. We regularly receive positive feedback from them as well. And again, I recognize that this setup will not be the best option for every situation or every community, and that's okay. There are so many different factors impacting what service delivery method works for you, and there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What I do hope is that the webinar has provided a little more information on this option of providing hazardous waste drop-off services. And even if it's not feasible in your communities, some of the information can prove useful in your own program to help continue to serve the residents in your community and generate some more creative thoughts and ideas about service delivery innovation. At the end of the day, anyone who works in this industry recognizes that things are constantly changing, whether that be operational requirements, legislation, accessibility standards, costs, and even the needs, wants, and expectations of the customer. So being able to learn and adapt and implement new and exciting ideas is all part of being able to continuously meet the needs of your community in a way that is effective for you. And there is some contact information. If anybody would like to reach out, if you have questions or anything like that, by all means, feel free to do so. I think we also, well, we don't have a whole lot of time, I guess, but there is a bit of time left if there's any questions.
Sorry, I had to unmute. So, Matt answered a few of them earlier, Anita.
Okay, perfect.
Well, you had dropped off, but it looks like there's a few more that came in here. One is, what are your annual disposal fees? And then I guess I'm guessing that's related to what residents pay for your disposal or businesses, I guess.
Oh, I see. Okay. So we don't accept business material or business household hazardous waste at this depot. It's only for residents, and there's no fee for them to use the service. Is that what you were getting at? Are you wondering if they have to pay to use it?
Well, it just says annual disposal fees, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So-
when we first implemented the program, our overall cost for the event days was about $250,000 a year. So we're relatively small. I'm sure some of you have far larger disposal costs than that. But we were able to cut about $40,000 the first year, and then the second year we were able to cut even more, to about half of what we were paying. Now, since then, everything has increased in cost. And it also depends on your newest tender. We have to put our contracts out for tender. So sometimes the new tender comes in a little higher than the previous one. But it was, I would say, if we wanted to compare apples to apples, the first year, it was about half the cost of operating our event days.
Right. And then another question here is, what was the cost of the build for the mobile unit?
So when we first purchased the roll-off bin, and got all the modifications made in place, it cost about $16,000. But again, that's in 2016, so it'll probably be more today, but at that time, that's what it cost us, the initial capital cost.
Okay. And that is the only other one in the question box right now. If anybody else has any other questions, I'll give you a minute to type them in. Oh, till 1. Okay. Not seeing any other questions come in, so I'd like to thank Anita for doing the presentation today, and thank everyone for attending. These presentations are recorded and then posted in the member area of the NAMA website. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at communications@nama.org, and we can help connect you with Anita if you have any further follow-up questions. But thank you everyone for attending today.
Thank you very much.